Welcome, everybody, to the Lilydale Astrology Cafe. I am your host, Patricia Bell. I am a registered medium in Lilydale and a vintage astrologer for over 5 decades. Astrology is a part of my passion, and I am so pleased to be able to be with you at this time with this amazing, amazing young woman, Stormie Grace. She has now her new book, which is out, and everybody, please run. I've told all my friends, go get Planet Aspects by Stormie Beeston. Of course, Stormie's going to talk about it later, but in order to understand astrology, we have to love it. And I know that Stormie loves it, but I'm going to let you find out more about her from her. So, my key question is as we start, welcome, Stormie. And what was the magic that got you into astrology?
Yes, thank you so much for having me and opening a space for me to spend time with you and with your tribe of people. It wasn't the magic that necessarily got me into it. It was the magic that called me to remember. And I was right there, 6'7", right at my Saturn square, and my mother realized I was seeing the world and experiencing it differently than my brothers were. So she took me to my very first metaphysical convention that was happening. And I just, I was like, these are my people. And I loved it. And the herbs and the numerology and just all of the things that were happening there were amazing. And then we went to this astrology table, and the woman was doing the chart by hand. And it was like I woke up and I said, oh, I've done this 100 times. And I just followed what she was doing. And it was just a remembering. That's really what it was that clicked me in. But it was such a powerful remembering that it was like I've never been afraid to be without astrology. From that time, I didn't feel like I woke up and, oh my God, I have to do this and I have to hold it tight and go after it. It wasn't like that. It was so soul level and cell level remembered that I have felt free to build my whole life and go out and try other things, but everything was astrologically thought about, and the things and the rituals in my home revolve around the seasons and things like that. So it was always there. And then at my Saturn return, I had been working in radio, which I loved, and I have Mercury and Gemini in the 10th. So that has worked out very well for me. And I was at my Saturn return day of, bang on, and I walked into the radio station, and it was this place that I had loved. I literally loved it. And I felt like I walked through a doorway, and I knew. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean I'm going to start my astrology business officially, and I'm going to do it on YouTube, and I am going to ride this for the rest of my life. I will retire an astrologer. And I was terrified. I was terrified. This was, it was not at the time, I was not as hot about Saturn as I am today, but I did feel sure that what was happening right then was right. And so that is really the pathway of how it got me more to the table to really being out here practicing professionally. And in between, I picked up all the books. I feel like if Stephen Forrest wrote a post-it note, I read it. It just, that was the place of consumption for me, because I knew soul stories. And I knew, just looking at people, that sometimes I was like, oh, you're not working on that in this current life. You're still sorting something else out. So his work was easy for me to consume. And after I got started professionally and started going down the evolutionary route, I didn't know anything about this man. I didn't know anything about his lineage, but I heard this booming voice in my house, and I just said, okay, I'm coming. Now, moving in the realm of the spirit is not foreign to me at all. That's pretty commonplace. And I said, okay, I'm coming. And I got online and I found Kathy Rose. And I said, do you know some guy with this big old voice? Because I'm supposed to study his astrology. And she shows me Noel Till. And this is how the forest and till line came into how I practice today. And then along the way, I've developed my own ways of expressing that. So that is really what happened.
Wow. Isn't it interesting how Saturn all of a sudden comes and kisses us and gives us a form?
Yeah.
It's something that is like almost like your inner knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fabulous.
And I have such a different relationship with Saturn today, and I just really enjoy it. It's more so than anything when I get weird, it's Neptune. Like,
Ah,
I get weird with Neptune. It's never the Saturnian things.
so how do you get weird with Neptune? Because I am sure everybody is weird with Neptune right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways that I have found with Neptune is that I really do experience the disorientation of going, whoa. And for me, a lot of times what it will feel like is I have to really kind of even one, focus my physical vision and make sure that I'm looking into the correct realm and into the correct situation that I'm in, because it's very easy for me to move between spaces and to do that. And it's very easy for me to leave my space when I'm sleeping. So when I'm in a Neptunian time, it's more about I have to pay attention to what's really real in front of me and then also trust that sense. It's as confusing and blurry as I think that it's meant to be with Neptune. Um, Not so much, I don't struggle so much with the ego dissolution, dissolving that happens with Neptune, because I kind of more readily let that go. But sometimes it's just like, what day is it? Honest to God. And I'm a Taurus, so I don't necessarily enjoy disorientation very much. So it comes down to that I really have to focus and put my head where my hands are a lot when we're dealing with Neptune.
You know, being a Virgo, uh, I like to stay grounded too. And I found that when Neptune comes to kiss me, I wind up falling asleep.
That's nice.
Yes, yes, yes. So today we're going to talk about the Aries equinox. What an equinox for 2026.
Wow. Right. It's so, I feel like obvious. We've got this beautiful stellium over here in Pisces, but then we've got the active stellium plus plus in Aries. So it is really like we are leaving the dreaming and we are in the reset and ready to go. And one of the things I have been loving, and I saw the inklings of it in 25, as many of us did, is seeing the leadership and courage starting to show up. Where people are like, no, this is the direction I'm willing to go. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there or what that's going to look like, but I am willing to go this direction, no questions asked. And I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it because I think what I'm seeing, I'd be curious to see what you're seeing, but I think that I'm seeing more people just get really like gut level fiery honest about where their soul is leading right now. What is that honest soul non-performative story that I'm willing to take responsibility for and usher forward? I
Well,
love
I
it.
do agree with you that it's part of us being our authentic self. And as Alan Cohen would say, the fire in the belly has been somewhat ignited. Um, I'm into Chinese astrology as well, and this is the year of the fire horse. And most people don't recognize the fact that the horse was the one that took the jade Buddha to heaven. And to me, I see it as really a time of spiritual evolution and
Mhm.
evolvement.
Mhm. I do as well because I believe so much that as we were doing the work in the Pisces terrain, we got to be in the dreaming and in the visioning of what it is. But then there was going to need to be a fair amount of spiritual backbone to stand and to trust that we are seated in the position of the hands of the universe, safely protected, ready to walk with the courage and fire that we're being given now. So the spiritual awakening, evolution, movement forward, initiation, I think we're going to continue to see this move forward, because now it's not just the idea of what it could be, it's that we're in the steps to make it happen. But I just don't think that can be done without some spiritual backbone back there, because how do you feel safe enough to absolutely outgrow and burn away everything you've ever thought life was supposed to be without that?
You're absolutely spot on, because we're in this new beginnings, especially at the equinox where everybody talks about it being the astrology day and all of this stuff. So when you're talking to people, Stormie, are there some tidbits that you say, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that? What would you recommend?
At the Aries point, the first thing I always invite people to do is to celebrate where they were before. I believe that even at the Aries point, the opportunity to recognize the grief and the gratitude of where we're leaving in order to have the courage to step forward or see the reason why we would step forward is really important, and a piece of what soothes the human soul and mind to be able to have that new beginning. So I typically start people in the position of, let's celebrate what you built here first. What was it? What'd you do in a year? Where do you have more faith in the universe, in yourself, in trusting your intuition? And now let's see where we can take that newly trusted intuition or instinct on the road. And we have this initiation now where you can step forward. Sometimes too, depending on how or what season people are in, which is something I'll be talking about at Lilydale, because I'll be talking about the phases of the moon, particularly by progression. I'm going to align an Aries strategy that aligns with the season that they're in. So if someone is moving at the Aries time to their first quarter time, we're going to talk about all the things you can do. What can you do? What can you go build? You get to be a builder at this time, and where do you get to use your leadership there? As opposed to if someone is in a balsamic season of their life, leadership here looks like putting boundaries. I need to rest. I get to rest. I get to nurture myself. I get to not go out if that's not what's needed. So I'm going to point people to leadership based on the season as well, because it makes it easier.
Some of our listeners don't always understand the lunations, so beginning and balsamic and quarters and things. Could you just like briefly sort of let them know what it is?
Absolutely. So we experience them monthly, but we also experience them through the seasons of our life in progression, and focusing in a progress time. You're going to spend about 3.5 years in each one of these 8 phases, from the new moon time, where the newest version of us is being born. We always give birth to a new identity, whoever's going to drive that bus forward, and a new project that being is going to work on as well. And then we move through the crescent, and I call these the early spring times, where things are, you can't always touch them, taste them, and then they become tangible. And then we move into the summer, into our first quarter, into our gibbous times, where we're building, we're active, we're tearing down, we're forming relationships based on new things that we brought in. And then we move into the fall, where we full moon and we disseminate all the things that we've done, we've built, we've learned. Now we get to share them. We get to question the purpose of them, integrate them, or shed them. And then we come to the winter times, the last quarter in the balsamic, where this 30-year version of you gets to start putting that down and becoming what you get to be next, and having our first honest encounters with consciously participating in our own death. And this is massively scary for most English speaking places, because we see death as separate than life, as opposed to a celebration of getting to have done something fully and now lay it to rest. So these are what I look at in the different seasons of life, and they require and ask different energy from us because they only have so much energy to provide.
Yes. And that, thank you very much for that, because, understanding those different quarters and aspects and sense of timing, I think is going to be even more important as we move through this fire year,
Mm.
because it's not all about hurry, hurry, ding, ding, go, go. And not everybody is going to be able to keep that pace. Now,
Mhm.
at the equinox, you not only have Neptune and Saturn kissing each other, I mean, you've got the moon in Aries and I mean, and the sun.
Chiron
I
is
like, oh
there.
my gosh.
Yeah, it is busy. I mean, it is a pretty potent chart. And then just what is it, days later, we see that all of that comes into this beautiful sextile as well with Pluto. So it is the calling of we're in different terrain, right? This is the archetype of what we're going to be working with energetically, all clustered there in Aries is like new confidence. I hate the phrase new year, new me. But this is probably the one time in my life that I'm like, no, guys, it's new year, new us. Okay. We're all really coming together because we have a powerful chart to begin creation here. What is it that we want? How boldly are we going to go forward, and how truthfully are we going to go for it as well? The other thing I just want to say about this that I think is really important is that one of the conceptions I've been working with and following my research is in 2025, we saw all of the professor planets, all of the outer planets get into masculine signs. And in that, we saw feminine energy start to vibrate very differently than it was when it was in Capricorn, and we could kind of have free reign of the terrain, right? But now it was like receive. Feminine energy has to call back, remember to receive, remember to embody, and remember to become magnetic, empowered, and attractive. And this, I think, at the Aries Ingress is another symbol to that. And I am watching women everywhere remember and wake up and go, I have to get my feet in the dirt. I have to create. I have to move and flow. I can't hustle and go anymore. And so, even watching this masculine support container in that Aries vibration make space for a rebirth of safe femininity, sacred masculinity to come back to the table. I couldn't be more excited because when we're talking about Aries and the identity and survival instincts, I think this chart gives us an opportunity for thrival, not just survival, a whole new way to do it.
Yes, 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 yes. I love the fact that you said the us in all of this, that it's a new year, a new us, and that us, um, I feel like what you're talking to me about is the consciousness of it all. And that consciousness that is allowing us to be our truly authentic selves, to birth the new us in some ways, that
Yeah.
we also can feel safe and secure with.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that this most authentic rebirth is about living spiritually, but being awake in physical form. You know, how do we do that? How do we hold compassion without losing the boundaries? How do we stand in our truth without abandoning the tenderness that's needed? How do we do this? And it's a full call for all of us. It can't just be them or them. You know, that's kind of the nice thing about being on Earth. No one is exempt from the experience of our transits.
Absolutely. That whether you're in Spain like you are, or I'm in Florida presently, we are all feeling the energetics of it as we are the weather. But
Yeah.
when we move forward, do you feel as though that come March, it's going to be softer or more aggressive, or is it going to be split?
My sentiment at present is that it will be rougher before it gets easier. Because while I think the courage that comes with Aries is the consciousness, being very embodied and really emotionally honest, whether we're looking at that in a collective space or we're looking at it in our individual homes, we have to break the soil first. I like to hold the vision of Aries in the more Roman sense, where we see Aries being the sacred gardener. We have to break ground. We have to break the ground. And if that was not done in 2025, which we only had a short tour of everybody coming on, and we mostly heard people speaking of the discomfort of what's going on. But now the awareness as they stay and these planets stay and do their work, this is where I think we can actually tap into the consciousness, but it means then we're tapping into the consciousness and we have to burn away the inflammation, very Aries, the inflammatory truths, stories, all of this before we can really move into the growth piece of it. So I think it'll be bumpy before we smooth. That's why we have Taurus.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. When I was in Rome, they have the building to Aries. It's very clearly stated that Aries was not just the god of war, but the god of agriculture.
Yeah.
So what are the seeds are we planting? What is it that we really want to grow? And do we have the consciousness to be able to plant what it is? And you're right, not that I have, okay, but I've never plowed a field, but I have watched farmers do that work. And it takes a lot of energy to till the soil to help things grow.
Absolutely. And I think that it will take in certain parts of the world a real act of self-trust and humility to remember that we don't tell the soil to do anything. We act in active participation with it. And the coming back to that partnership and owning our side, the me, and how we got into this disconnected dynamic will be really important. And that's where the Saturn and Neptune being there in Aries as well, I think is helpful for that spiritual kind of portal to the sensitivity, to the grief, to the release that will also need to happen as we do that in deep disillusionment about truths that we thought were going to make everything okay, and the false narratives that we've each carried, whether they be collectively again or in our own households. So I think that those two planets right there will be some helpers to us.
Yes, yes, yes. That sense of personal responsibility that, as you have addressed, is going to be called upon, isn't it? So that we can move forward.
Yeah.
And to those who want to hide their head in the sand,
that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. But I do think this is where I love just trusting nature to be nature, because it is working. While that feminine energy was called back to receive and to soften and to be that embodied energy, the masculine energy is awakening as well. And in it, collectively, what I think that we're seeing is a new reimagining of, okay, but what does that look like? How do we have the masculine feminine dynamic on this planet? How do we bridge them back together? Because I can't tell you, I don't know if you're seeing this, But I am for sure, I am seeing men in particular, I would say right at those midlife transits, 38 and up, and they are facing, I'm going to get divorced, I'm going to be broke, I'm feeling alone. Or I have to start getting different and looking at how I embody even my own masculine energy and what does that mean, right? There is this sense of responsibility, and I'm really seeing it rise to the surface. And I'm seeing these men respond rather than avoid. And I think that is good news. I think that's good
I think
news.
it's great news because I think, and I'm a mother of sons, that I have seen how they have been put in a box where they weren't allowed the opportunity of their creativity, their emotional place in the world, to be able to say, I can do so much more than just provide and protect. I have this
Mhm.
wonderment inside of me that is going to allow me to co-create with the feminine, that it can be the most conscious and freeing opportunity for them as men.
Yeah.
I mean, they can finally cry. They don't have to have all this containment inside that turns into anger, but has an opportunity uh, in other realms,
Mhm.
in other realms. And it's
I
fabulous.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant. And, talking about it getting more bumpy before it gets soft, in these men, I'm seeing start to have more of a response. It literally is. And many of them, they're the Pluto Libras. So partnership is getting their attention as we are here to do. And it is, the partner saying, you have to get and feel through that. And you get to feel through that now, because if not, we cannot rise it to the surface and even envision what we will build next. So it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I really just think that the energies are going to get a nice rebalancing, but first, getting a spiritual truth grounded in reality, that's a bit bumpy.
It is, because everybody sees their own spiritual truth through their own eyes.
Mhm.
It's like here in Lilydale, we pray to the God of your understanding. That's
Yeah.
your spiritual truth. And you can take people who have a lot of different truths, but they all interpret or understand it within their own experiential understanding of what that really means to them.
Yeah.
And to me, that takes some sorting out, as you're talking about.
Yeah, that takes some sorting out. That takes, Saturn and Aries being kissed with the gift of maturity and responsibility and conscious leadership, Aries, because that's where my spiritual awakening, whatever I perceive that to be, my new vision, meets a lot of accountability. And in this way, the structure former and our dissolver, as they meet together, I'm like, yes, the new vision has a chance.
And we're all learning new dance steps, forward, back, side, everything, And I think music is going to be a great form of assisting us to move forward during these transitions.
I I agree completely for multiple reasons. One, historically, we've seen it. Anytime we get into great chaos, we have these particular planets in these arrangements. We started to see the work of Helena Blavatsky come, and there was this response to great spiritual crisis at the time, right? We're to grief. How do we process this grief? Because being in Aries doesn't mean we're ready to go. It means I'm ready to process the grief and move on and burn it away. right? But the other thing is let's just go back to rebalancing feminine masculine energy, getting them on par. Women I know left and right are being called back to dance. They're like, I gotta dance, I gotta dance, I gotta stomp, I have to move this out of my hips, I have to move this out of my body. And in the language of dance and in the language of breath, every time a woman comes into a space with dance in her body, the whole room heals. And I'm seeing that over and over and over again.
So very true. And it's so interesting because, as you well know, Stormy, dance has helped women throughout their entire lives, whether it's childbirth or menopause or just the joy of being alive and being
Yes,
able to express it,
yes,
and finding that energetic breath, you know, how I think that it'd be wonderful if we all could just say, okay, time out. We're going to dance around the room for a minute.
yes. Which is actually kind of an interesting thing because I think that as we watch the technology and the AI pieces coming in, because here we are, we're with the next machines. This is a reality. But in one of those ways, we have seen things online where this is it. People go to that particular app because they want to dance with other people. They want to see other people dancing. They want a 15-second clip of a song that just reminds them, like, oh God, I loved that when I was younger, and it's calling the music back up to them. So, regardless of some many nefarious things that may or may not be in the waters, it's also giving us back to each other. And this is something that I hope that we don't miss as we welcome co-creation with the machines, the next machines as well.
Well, I'm a little bit longer in the tooth than you, my darling. And I never thought in my lifetime I would have a cell phone and be able, or a computer that would talk to anybody in Spain, let alone next to me. And then when it first came out, it was this heavy brick. So psychologically, I think we're going to have to get through that heavy brick
Yeah,
of the AI thinking to recognize that it doesn't have to be as heavy on us as our fear may lead us to.
absolutely. And you know what? Though this is, I mean it in the most loving way, but it's all I've ever seen on the Nature Channel. But in this way, I love astrology and history because I'm like, listen, humans, we are like little cockroaches. We survive all kinds of things and we keep doing it. Look at our cycles. Look at our cycles. Look at what we have survived. Look at what we have adapted through and how every single one of those, where did we come back to and save? We're saved art, music, and each other every time, every single time. So living from that kind of space, looking at the astrology, it's incredibly liberating. And there's a lot of integrity to move with then, like, okay, how do I steward responsibly what I'm learning about the new machines and not carrying fear, but carrying a willingness to learn? Everybody said the cell phone thing will never catch on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And look at us, like really look at us. Here we are. So we're on the forefront of new visibility. That's very Aries as well. New rage, new safety. We're taking it all on, but we have made it through all of our cycles.
Absolutely. And, I think the excitement about new beginnings will eventually fall into place.
I do too. I do
We
too.
all have that certain fear of the unknown, but once we get more comfortable and we're able to see that we still can retain our organic selves, our physical selves, that's going to be an important piece of it. We
I
just don't know what's next, but that's okay. We still have the oneness of each other.
I can't wait. I mean, I almost love it that enough of the energy is putting pressure on us and our nervous systems, and we know more in terms of science, and science finally catching up with spiritual knowing and how things affect our nervous systems, how we store stories in our bodies to make us slow down and have to come back to earth, come back to ground, and come back to each other and realize I've missed something. I have to back up in my education a little bit. You know, something about having to survive together is actually quite good for us.
I think it's wonderful. I really do, because it gives us the understanding. It's like that Barbara Streisand song, People Need People. My mother loved it. So, and I do believe we need each other, um, for the warmth, for the love, for the compassion that we have in our hearts that isn't duplicated in our cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. And I
But
need
I'm
some.
so excited to have you in Lilydale. You mentioned Blavatsky. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Obviously, she was a, a leader to bring theosophy and things like this to us, and
Yeah.
very much recognized within the spiritualist movement, as well as Rudolf Steiner and the arts and things of that nature. But talk to us about what exactly we are going to be able to embrace as you visit us here in Lilydale.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was just thinking about this, a quote from Helena Blavatsky. She said, "You're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the entire ocean." And I love that. And I think about that in terms of being an astrologer. I am one of a whole ocean of all of us. And Albert Camus said, I'm going to mess this up, but something about the stories of our history have to be retold by the next generation. And that is what I'm going to come to do. And I'm going to talk about the moon, and I'm going to talk about the phases and how we can pull that into understanding and having grace, the most grace with ourselves in those natal phases, to accept ourselves authentically. This is how I'm made. This is the shape of light I came under. Here's the skills I have. Here are my challenges that might come with that. And here's how I keep in fit spiritual condition with that. And then I'm going to talk about the seasons of life. And I'm bringing a story that's older than all of us, of how life and death, we walk all the time with both of them. And we have to learn the maturity to walk with both of them, because we are both of them all of the time. So what season of life are you in by shape of light? And let's participate fully in that process of living, or living, dying. And then what do you do in it? And how to not be afraid. We are magical. I think we are honestly one of the only beings that I know about that get more than one lifetime in a life, just looking at it seasonally. We're doing a lot of work here.
We are. We are. And you're absolutely right, because life is not just this physical embodiment. Because as you have worked with spirit, you know that that life continues and communicates and is there with us, which is part of the totality of the oneness of who we are, and that we're never really alone. And so having you come and be able to share the movement, because a lot of people feel as though this is going, and I do, feel as though it's going to be a fast moving year. If you know how to pace yourself, you're going to make it through this year. And it's
Absolutely.
going to be able to be, and I think that's why I would like everybody, please come to Stormie's class. You learn how to pace yourself through this year. I mean, yes, I know she's going to be there in August, and you may go, whoa, well, catch up, learn how to be able to refresh, revisit, and renew yourself because the year won't be over. And I hate to put you on the spot, but do you have a copy of your book by you?
I don't. I don't. It actually comes out in May. It's officially out.
Oh,
It's
okay.
out for pre-order right now. So please go get it because it lets them know that it's good. It's wanted.
Well, I know that I have recommended it, and I think that it's a great way for people to grab your book and get to know you before they even come to the class.
Yeah, it is.
You
So
know,
sit
and
down,
it's
grab
like,
it.
okay, I'm going to go see Stormie. She's been in Spain. I don't really know her because I hadn't met her while she was in the US. And a lot of people in Lilydale, it's not like you're teaching astrologers. Some of them are going to be newbies. And yes, they're going to want to know about themselves. And yes, they're going to want to know about you. So I am strongly recommending that you go to Amazon, is it?
You go to Amazon. If you could buy a book there, they have it.
Okay. And go ahead, pre-order, get to know Stormie before you get to meet her. I mean, I'm so excited for this time because I know that those of us who come together are creating a force of love,
Mhm.
spirit, because we know that connection as you do, Stormie. Ever since you were a child, this is something that I really believe is so important. And I think that this is a time for us all to be in touch with how we move through life. Now, before you run off back to your daily life, is there some thought, message, or wish you would like to leave for these people on the podcast before they get to see you in August?
I think the thing that just feels so potent to me is that you will be okay. And it will be okay because it already is.
Awesome.
Already is.
Sounds like a prayer that we all can keep in our hearts, Stormie. I am
As
so grateful for you. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. And I'm signing up for my book. It's on its way. And a lot of my friends and students, I've also asked them to sign up because I want them to meet you and to be there. And so that we can celebrate. Maybe we'll do some dance, eh?
I am. I'm already ready. I'm bringing music preloaded into my body to share in this gorgeous space with you guys. I'm bringing music, y'all.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, thank you for being here today, and we'll be in touch, and we'll see you relatively soon. All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye.